lead you in a guided meditation. And then we'll break up into 3 rooms and work with you. Groups of 8, and I guess a group of 7, or maybe 2 groups of 7, because a few people haven't come. And then we'll come back into the main room and we'll have a completion. Yeah? Okay, so fear is something, it's a really big topic, and we're just basically gonna just touch the outer edges of it and move into it in some way. But fear in itself is a huge topic, and it's something that we all deal with a lot. Yeah, fear, anxiety. Now, the type of fear that we'll be teaching is not heavy traumatic fear like panic attacks. Yeah, it's very different. It's the fear that we have, all of us have, through the day, the anxiety about things that we worry about, and then just that sense of anxiousness or that sense of fear that's there and can come up when it's triggered by different things. What we tend to do, our strategy, a defense strategy, but we're all very good at it, is we tend to avoid our fear. We put it under our conscious mind and into our unconscious mind. And it sits there, and then it controls our life. It turns into suffering. When we bring light to our fear, which is what we're going to try to do today in this workshop, then we can work with it, and then we can release it, and then we can come what's underneath the fear, the qualities that we have. Yeah, but when we keep it in an unconscious way, it can turn into many different moods. It can turn into depression. It can turn into anger. It can turn into physical illness like bad backs, bad necks, stomach problems, heart problems, lung problems. Yes, which is what it does. It somatizes, and it hurts our bodies. Yeah. It has so much control over us, and it's unconscious in that way. Or in our behaviors, we can become aggressive, or it leads to addiction. Yeah, it could be substance addiction, smoking dope, or doing a certain drug, or drinking too much wine. It can be a food addiction. Yeah, it can be an internet addiction. Yeah, just like trying to distract yourself all the time with some news on the internet. It turns into all kinds of addictions when we keep it unconscious, when we don't face our fear. And another thing that happens when we keep our fear unconscious is when we close off to our fear, we also close off to our love. And that's a big thing, yeah? Because we shut down our fear because we judge ourselves for being afraid. Yeah, when fear comes up and we start to judge it, it's not okay to be afraid now. Yeah, it's not okay. So you just keep it down, and then it just shuts you off. Yeah, you become a bundle of tight muscles against your very existence. Yeah, and you hold your breath and you stay tight. And you're unable to feel your heart and feel your love. In that case, we call this a trance of fear. And that's what we're really working with, is the trance of fear, fear that lives in our unconscious and controls our life. Of course, the difference between that kind of trance of fear and real fear, there's also real fear that protects us, yeah? Like you're walking down a street in the night, and in front of you, you see 4 guys looking really rough and dangerous, and you feel afraid. Now, you don't say to yourself, oh my God, I'm in a trance of fear. Yeah? You walk across the street to try to not bump into those guys. That's a real fear. Yeah, you have many of those situations also where fear is a healthy response to a situation. It protects you. But that's not the fear we're working with. The fear that we're working with in here is that what we call, again, a trance of fear. And how we're going to work with it, it has two wings of awareness. One is, first of all, recognizing when you're in the trance and basically saying to yourself, wow, right now I'm in the trance. Breathing into that trance, taking a pause, breathing into that trance, and allowing a space for the fear to be in the body, just coming out of that worried, fearful mind and embodying the fear and feeling it. Yeah? And just feeling what's there in the moment. And then the second part is holding that fear with compassion. Now that's a very important part. And that sounds good, but that's not so easy to do, to hold our fear in compassion. Because generally what we do is we hold our fear in judgment. Yeah, we judge ourselves for being afraid. But recognizing your fear, number one, that you're in a trance of fear, taking a pause and taking a breath, and then holding that fear in your heart, basically, with compassion, holding yourself in that fearful state, in that body of fear with compassion. Now, fear is basically, when you're in the trance, is telling you that something bad is just about to happen to you. Yeah, something wrong, something bad, something dangerous, something threatening is going to happen. And it accelerates then, yeah? It stores in the body again as that bundle of tension in your body. Yeah, you just feel your muscles are just tight, your fascia, your whole body tightens up, your breath gets short, or you hold your breath, or you tighten up even your diaphragm so you can't breathe. Yeah, again, a bundle of muscles defending against your very existence. And the more the fear is chronic and unconscious, the body armoring, the holding pattern in the body just becomes unconscious also. So the fear manifests in the flesh as some kind of pattern. Maybe you collapse your chest, you tighten your neck, you lift your shoulders, you tighten your low back, your energy goes out of your feet, your hands get cold, yeah? And you tighten your legs and knees. And that becomes your norm on some level. And you're not even aware that that's what's happening. Yeah? So the first thing, again, is to be aware of the trance of fear, and then again to bring compassion and empathy to it. Usually what we do in these situations is we pretend, yeah? We're afraid, and then we pretend that we're not afraid because we're ashamed to be afraid. So in interpersonal relationships, yeah, you're around people and somebody in that group of people intimidates you for whatever reason. Can be a friend, you know, somebody that you put up, and they're better looking, they're more intelligent, they're more on, whatever it is, they intimidate you, yeah? And so then you feel the fear coming or the anxiety. Yeah, I'm going to fail in this relationship somehow. So then what happens is you tighten up and you smile and you pretend that you're fine. You pretend everything is cool and you're actually fine. Yeah, and we're very good at that, huh? Or not so good at that. Maybe we're not so good at it and we're awkward. We become extremely awkward, or we freeze, yeah, and go into shock. But pretense is a big thing we do around fear. We feel the fear, and rather than allowing it, or even if we're around people who we have intimacy with, even stating the fact that, hey, I have some fear coming up, which then allows you to be vulnerable, yeah? Then allows you to be vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, we start to be able to feel the fear and heal it. with compassion. In the fear, our shame comes up, or our self-judgment comes up, and it tells us we're not okay the way we are. Fear is okay, but the resistance to fear creates suffering. Fear in itself is not the suffering. Now, we're not talking about panic, real traumatic fear, just the fear that we experience normally during the days is fine, but it's the resistance to that fear that creates suffering. Now, I'm just going to name a couple of types of fear that we all deal with. One is the fear of failure. I'm going to fail. And that comes up a lot, yeah? Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian, shared a story where, you know, the two top fears, supposedly the top fear, the number one fear is the fear of public speaking. And the number two fear is the fear of death. Go figure. So if you're at a funeral, you'd rather be in the casket than speaking the eulogy. That's funny, right? So fear of failure, yeah? I'm not going to make it. So we contract in that fear of failure, and it comes up all the time. Yeah, I'm afraid I'm not going to be good enough. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to succeed. So in that fear, we often freeze and we don't act, yeah? We don't move to the things that we're afraid that we're going to fail in. A second fear, fear of missing out. Now that's a giant fear we have also, the fear of missing out. Now I'm going to miss out of what? I'm going to miss out of love. I'm not going to get the love that I need, the romantic partner that I want. I'm going to miss out of success. I'm not going to get the success that I would like to have. I'm going to miss out in my work. Yeah, I'm not going to get what I want in my work. I'm going to miss out. So this fear of missing out, FOMO, this fear of missing out always keeps us grasping, yeah? We always have the feeling that we're not going to get enough and that we're not going to get what we need. So we grasp for more. And then when we do get what we need, there's something else comes. Oh, I'm going to miss out on this. I'll just tell a very short story because I'm running out of time, right? Nisagar, am I running out? A very short story around fear of missing out. And that is, when I was with Osho in Pune, I was like 26, 27. One of the coolest things you could do with Osho in those days is be in his darshan with a small group of people where he did a lot of energy darshans and he spoke personally to people every night. So I became a guard in the darshan. That was a really cool thing because I could go every night, you know. And then I saw that there was people that had a higher level than me. They were what called lifters. They lifted people away when Osho buzzed them with Shaktipad and they fell over, they lifted them. That was a better job. So I thought, God, I want that job. I wasn't happy that I was just a guard anymore in the darshan. Now I wanted to be a lifter. So finally I became a lifter, but I was number 6 lifter, and there was 6 lifters. The number 1 lifter had the best job. And then I thought, okay, I did that for a while. This is a great job. But then after a while, I thought, oh God, I wish I could move up the ranks so that I could be the number 1 lifter. And it goes on and on like that, right? It goes on and on like that. You get what you think you need or want, and then there's more fear of missing out. And that fear, again, keeps you always in a frantic place. I'm going to finish this with just one beautiful little poem of Hafiz, which is a Sufi poet, yeah? And it also talks, he also talks of fear. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to the world all of its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you, Satyarthi. So then we pass the microphone to Prema. So I unmute Prema, and you can take over the next part.
Okay.
And great. I will mute you, Satyarthi.
Thanks, Nisarga. Yeah, so that trance of fear, that's I think I want to pick up there, because that's really what we're here for, isn't it? How do I stop this repeating cycle, the thoughts, the fear, the anxiety that's going on inside of me, kind of the obsessive sort of thinking, that tightness in the body, whatever it may be. And Sat's talked about the need for compassion and the need to be present with the fear. And so I'm calling it a sort of embodied acceptance. And acceptance, that's a tricky word. And I don't mean by acceptance that, okay, yes, I'm all good with what's happening in the world right now. Or yes, I accept the fact that, I may have just lost my job, or, something that's happened to me. It's not like I love this. This is all for the greater good. Not that type of acceptance. What I mean is the acceptance of honestly feeling in this moment. We have this habit that Sat's talked about. We always turn away from ourselves. When the feelings get intense, when the sensations in our body get intense, we go into distractions, we go into shame, we feel that something is wrong with us. And so this embodied acceptance means noticing, like Sat said, noticing, okay, I'm in distraction, or noticing what's going on, and then coming back. That might mean that, we put a hand on an area of tightness in our body. Maybe we feel into it. We notice the tension. We notice the beating heart. Right now I'm feeling it, talking in front of all of you. We feel in, we maybe notice that tension, and we allow it to soften a bit. We listen. Something in me is worried right now. For some of us, it may feel like a small child, or a feeling of vulnerability, or there's some sort of aching that's happening in the body. And this listening, this slowing down, this connecting into ourselves opens our hearts to ourselves. It opens us up to feeling and being able to be with our pain instead of that distraction. And for many of us, embodying this, like really slowing down and embodying this breaks like not only a lifetime pattern perhaps, but possibly generational, your family pattern, the pattern of, pushing away sadness or that grief or fear. All of us are okay usually with some feelings and not others. We can feel anger, but we're not going to feel vulnerability. Or maybe we can feel sadness, but we're not going to feel like I can't do something, or I feel, afraid, or whatever it may be. There's some feelings that got accepted in our families and some didn't. And we learned as children in our families how to respond and feel to our feelings. And as children, of course, we don't have that capacity to be with our body, to be with our breath, to slow it down, to start to be able to digest and metabolize the sensations. We don't have that full, it's called the prefrontal cortex, that front part of our brain that's so important for letting us feel curiosity, empathy, to be able to, stay present and listen when things get intense. And that's just not with yourself, but that's in any relationship. Fear comes up in relating to our partners, and then we want to run away, or we want to go for chocolate or whatever. And so this front part of our brain that we only get to develop, into our 20s really, is what allows us to kind of turn back to ourselves and with some kindness. With my counseling clients, one of the things I do right off the bat, because I work with a lot of people around anxiety, is I say, let's just drop this whole word anxiety. It's such a clinical word. It's like this pathological word. And we say, I'm anxious. That becomes like our whole identity around it. And it becomes like this mountain. I'm anxious. I'm this really small little being in front of this mountain of anxiety and fear. And it's like, no, okay, let's just drop that identity for a moment. And instead, come back, be right here. What's this rock or this plant? You know, what's this shaky feeling in the belly? You know, what's this tightening? What's these kind of thoughts? Just moment by moment, being with what's just right here in front of us. And the more that we're able to tune in and track and be with our feelings, to feel those waves, because all of our feelings, they don't come on and stay. There's a wave to all of this. It comes in, and then we can be with it and digest it, and then it fades away. And when we can stay present while feeling our ground over and over, moving in and out of these cycles of activation and deactivation, it starts to feel safe enough to open our hearts to our pain, to our grief, you know, to our sadness, you know, really any feeling. We're talking about fear today, but what Sats and I are talking about here, what we're working with here, it can apply to anything. It can apply to jealousy, it can apply to anger, grief, whatever it may be. But there's this delicate balance, you know, because right now your mind might be saying, what? It is crazy. You're telling me to sit and feel my fear. I want to run away from my fear. I don't want to feel this. What's that? What good is that going to do me? You know, that's going to feel horrible. That's going to lead me to depression. You know, our minds will come in with these fears. And when I mean this embodied acceptance, it's a balance between being with and not being flooded. And that window between being able to stay with something versus getting flooded by something, that window is going to be different for all of us. And this is where that compassion comes in. You know, it might be that today you stay with something for a few seconds, and that's great. And then we move to something else. We move away for a little bit. Then we come back for a few more seconds, and then we move away. Some days it might be a minute. Some days it might be a whole afternoon. Whatever it is for you, it's those repeated going in and feeling and being with. It's not, and then moving away. That may be the most compassionate, self-loving action you can take. Because it's not about going in and being like, okay, I'm going to feel this fear. I'm going to conquer this fear. I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to root it out. I'm going to heal it. I'm gonna. That some of us may have that kind of pusher part of ourselves that says, okay, we're just going to get to the bottom of this and I'm going to conquer it. And so no, that's not what we're talking about here. It's building a new sort of relationship with ourselves. You know, we're actually in many ways training our nervous system that we can stay present to what's here, that we can hold ourselves. And that's the whole idea of neuroplasticity. You know, fear has that impulse. It's a biological impulse to run. And our bodies actually can't tell that much of a difference between stress, fear, anxiety, and a real life-threatening situation. You know, it's the same hormones that get released in all those different types of situations. And right now we're faced with a stress that biologically, when we're under stress, the first thing we want to do when we feel fear is we try to turn and identify the threat. But here we're under threat by something we can't even see. It's a virus that's out there somewhere. And so we can't even identify the threat. That really mixes up everything inside of us, makes it much more difficult. So even more so, slowing down, not following that mind when it comes up and starts racing ahead with the thoughts of, you know, next day, next week, next month. And I'm not saying that the mind is bad and staying with the body is good. You know, I'm not trying to set up that kind of dichotomy at all. But from trauma, we know that there's these responses that we're biologically programmed to have in response to fear. You know, you've heard of fight, you've heard of flight, you've heard of freeze. But we also have the social engagement. And we usually think of that as social engagement as in connecting with somebody else for safety. But in this case, it's about connecting with ourselves for that sense of ground, sensing our breath, slowing down, maybe feeling that tension in our throat for a little bit. Being with what's happening without thinking of ways of how to get rid of it. And with that, we start to contact the vulnerability that's living there underneath it. Some of us, it may start to feel like a small child is there that's calling out for something. There may be an image that comes, or a memory, whatever it may be, out of this ongoing willingness to contact and listen and tune in and be with, we start to develop a new relationship, actually a trust. As we start to expand our capacity, our nervous system range of what we can feel while staying grounded and present, we start to develop more strength, more ability to be with ourselves. And the key with this is becoming curious. It is really hard to be curious about our experience and at the same time, authentically curious, like really curious. And at the same time, wanting to try and figure out how to get out of it. Turning towards, we begin to listen. What's the voices inside saying? And this can be really powerful for connecting us to our needs. So many of us were not raised with a healthy sense of need, or that it's safe to need, or it's okay to need. We were raised to think that somehow needing is bad, or we got to somehow figure out how to do it all ourselves. But as we can turn that embodied awareness, acceptance, that compassion, what do I need? What are the small, tiny steps I can take to get those needs met? The more we drop into that day by day, over time, the more we're able to stay with ourselves. Proving to ourselves that it's survivable. We can be with this. We can be with these intense emotions. And it takes courage. I'm not saying it's easy or anything like that, but the more that we can, bit by bit, the more we discover that actually I'm bigger than I thought I was. There's some space here in me. There's actually space around the fear, or space around the grief, anger, depression. So in the end, we may find that as we're able to sit with our feelings, that we don't actually free ourselves from fear. I think we were going to call this workshop perhaps Freeing Yourself from Fear. I don't remember, but I don't think we ever free ourselves from fear. It's a biological necessity. But we can free ourselves from losing our power to fear. And that's a big difference. So I don't think it's about conquering fear. Someday this virus will be over, and whatever it is in life, you want to go for a new job or relationship or some sort of project. And the mind will come in with all its little chirping sounds. Oh no, don't do that, or it's not safe, or you're going to get hurt. All those different ways that fears show up for us. And so I'm not saying, we're going to destroy the fear or somehow silence the mind, but to stay right in that middle, right in that middle where we can be with and feel our feelings without losing ourselves. Fear then doesn't become the authority. Anxiety no longer becomes who we are. Oh, I'm an anxious person. No. I'm somebody who can be with and feel my feelings, and then that new relationship comes. Because what if we're not denying our fear? What if we're not becoming fused with it either? What's left? What's left then is a new type of relationship with ourselves, a new type of intimacy, empathy, clarity, compassion, an authentic attunement with ourselves. And for me, at least, that means that we really get to love ourselves in all the moments, particularly the ones when we feel the most scared. And that's real self-love. So I think I've gone over my time at this point. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you, Prema, for this beautiful introduction. So you mentioned a few times about embodied awareness. So before we go into rooms to share, I would like to give mic to Giten, who will guide us through a very beautiful meditation to go back to the body, go back to the pulses, and embody that acceptance and that self-love that you were talking about. So Giten, I will unmute you and please go ahead.
Thank you, Nisarga. Thank you, Satyarthi and Prema. Very beautiful talk on fear, which really actually moved me as well, because this is universal what we are experiencing around fear. It touches every single human being pretty much in similar ways. We all have developed our patterns to be with it, to react to fear, but underneath it, our body responds pretty much in a very similar way. And like Satyarthi mentioned before, fear produces this tightness, which is kind of like a full-on bodysuit that we are wearing, this shell, this protection shell. Fear makes us contract. Fear stops movement. Fear interrupts movement. If fear interrupts reaching out. So now I want to invite you to close your eyes and connect to yourself. Maybe you want to put a place, find a place in your body where your fear is stored, where you hold this fear, where is this place that gets most activated when you are faced with your fear. For some of you, it could be your heart closes. For some of you, it could be your belly contracts or your jaw tightens up. Find this place right now. Where is this location in your body which is being affected by fear most of all? And notice the physical sensations that living there in this place. What are these distinct physical sensations that are associated with your fear? Maybe it's contraction or tension or pain, whatever it is for you. Just notice, this is how I store fear in my body. Maybe it's one place, maybe it's a whole area of your body. Maybe it's the front of your body, or it's the back of your neck, with just we all try to shrink our head into our shoulders when we are in fear. It's a natural response to protect our physical body, to make ourselves small. So notice what it's like for you. How is your body responding to this fear? And everything that you just heard from Satyarthi and Prema, how is this affecting you? And it's really what we're working with, what Satyarthi mentioned, is transfear. It's fear that you live most of the time with, or it gets activated in the times as like now with this virus. This is pretty much survival. We are in this place where we're trying to isolate ourselves so we're not being sick or getting anyone sick. And this is fear of death. This is what Satyarthi talked about. One of the biggest fears, that this fear number 2 is the biggest fear of death. So now connect with this. Where's this fear that's living in your body? Where is it? What's the location? And take a deep, full breath into it. Notice all the physical sensations that are accompanying this fear. Notice how your hand is raising with this breath that you're inviting. Breath is usually expands us. It starts the movement again. And maybe fear is expressed in numbness. I can't feel myself. I can't feel my physical body. So let yourself drop into it and let yourself feel this numbness if it's there. And again, the invitation is to take a deep, full breath into this place of fear, and to actually start to come in acceptance with it, to come to acceptance to your fear. Yes, there is room for it, and I don't have to disconnect from it. And now, in the next hour and a half, we will explore that, how this is stored in your body and what is your strategy to be dealing with this, and how you can come into acceptance of this fear and just allow yourself to be a part of it, of yourself, without trying desperately to break out of it. Take a deep, full breath again into this place. Really feel the expansion that comes with the breath. As you breathe in, there's expansion in your body. Allow yourself to feel that for a moment. With this acceptance, we again allow the movement to happen. Breath is movement. When you breathe in, you allow the movement to happen in your body. So to come into acceptance of fear, trying to transform fear, it's absolutely necessary for us to come in contact with our physical bodies, with our breath, number one. And take a deep, full breath once again and bring some sort of movement into your body. Maybe expand from this place where the breath is flowing. You can stretch, you can really reach in opposite directions, up and down, sideways. Unwind a little bit, move your spine, make a sound, breathe in and breathe out with the sound, let it flow. Yes. And let's get ready to explore our fear, how this fear lives in our bodies, and what we can do to actually come into acceptance of it and allow it to start to move. So, Nisarga, I pass it on to you so you can break out people into groups, and
Okay.
one of us in the group, and we will explore. Each one of you will get like 7 or 8 minutes or so, or 10 minutes. 10 minutes each. Yeah, perfect. That's plenty of time to look seriously and what
wants most attention inside of me, or what have I been most unwilling to feel? What am I unwilling to feel right now, even? Whatever the question that might be helpful for you to start to tune in. And you're not going to be alone in this exploration, as I said. We're going to be there working with you. And it's really important that when you're in the breakout space and somebody else is sharing, the other people, give them your complete attention. Also at the same time, keep looking in yourself, feeling in yourself, what is this bringing up for me? What am I being stirred by? What am I feeling? What am I sensing? So staying really present to your own feelings, but at the same time, giving your attention to whoever's there sharing, because we're going to create a supportive field together. And we'll be in these rooms for about 90 minutes in total. So during that time, if you have to use the bathroom, go ahead when you need to, but come right back. Don't leave and go have dinner or lunch or whatever it may be, just because your sharing is done. We're really creating a supportive, safe space together. And then at the end of that 90 minutes, Nisarga will bring us all back together into this main room. Sats, anything you want to add to that?
Place in you, yeah. Again, like Prema said, don't just share your stories, but share from a feeling level. What's going on. Maybe this virus, because of we're quarantined, or you're alone, or you don't have space to do your normal life, and maybe it brings up a lot right now. It brings up your fear, or your sadness, or your frustration, whatever it is that you're dealing with, and